The calls were less frequent now, normally once a week on Sunday afternoons. "You're always welcome here, Baba," she told her father on the phone. "You know you don't have to ask." Her mother would not have asked. "We're coming to see you in July," she would have informed Ruma, the plane tickets already in hand. There had been a time in her life when such presumptuousness would have angered Ruma. She missed it now. Adam would be away that week, on another business trip. He worked for a hedge fund and since the move had yet to spend 2 consecutive weeks at home. Tagging along with him wasn't an option. He never went anywhere interesting, usually towns in the Northwest or Canada, where there was nothing special for her and Akash to do. In a few months, Adam assured her the trips would diminish. He hated stranding Ruma with Akash so often, he said, especially now that she was pregnant again. He encouraged her to hire a babysitter, even a live-in, if that would be helpful. But Ruma knew no one in Seattle, and the prospect of finding someone to care for her child in a strange place seemed more daunting than looking after him on her own. It was just a matter of getting through the summer. In September, Akash would start at a preschool. Besides, Ruma wasn't working and couldn't justify paying for something she now had the freedom to do. In New York, after Akash was born, she'd negotiated a part-time schedule at her law firm, spending Thursdays and Fridays at home in Park Slope. And this had seemed like the perfect balance. The firm had been tolerant at first, but it had not been so easy, dealing with her mother's death just as an important case was about to go to trial. She had died on the operating table of heart failure. Anesthesia for routine gallstone surgery had triggered anaphylactic shock. After the 2 weeks Ruma received for bereavement, she couldn't face going back. Overseeing her clients' futures, preparing their wills and refinancing their mortgages, felt ridiculous to her, and all she wanted was to stay home with Akash, not just Thursdays and Fridays, but every day. And then, miraculously, Adam's new job came through, with a salary generous enough for her to give notice. It was the house that was her work now, leafing through the piles of catalogs that came in the mail, marking them with post-its, ordering sheets covered with dragons for Akash's room. "Perfect," Adam said, when Ruma told him about her father's visit. "He'll be able to help you out while I'm gone." But Ruma disagreed. It was her mother who would have been the helpful one, taking over the kitchen, singing songs to Akash and teaching him Bengali nursery rhymes, throwing loads of laundry into the machine. Ruma had never spent a week alone with her father. When her parents visited her in Brooklyn, after Akash was born, her father claimed an armchair in the living room, quietly combing through the Times, occasionally tucking a finger under the baby's chin but behaving as if he were waiting for the time to pass. Her father lived alone now, made his own meals. She could not picture his surroundings when they spoke on the phone. He'd moved into a 1-bedroom condominium in a part of Pennsylvania Ruma did not know well. He had pared down his possessions and sold the house where Ruma and her younger brother Romy had spent their childhood, informing them only after he and the buyer went into contract. It hadn't made a difference to Romy, who'd been living in New Zealand for the past 2 years, working on the crew of a German documentary filmmaker. Ruma knew that the house, with the rooms her mother had decorated, and the bed in which she liked to sit up doing crossword puzzles, and the stove on which she'd cooked, was too big for her father now. Still, the news had been shocking, wiping out her mother's presence just as the surgeon had. She knew her father did not need taking care of, and yet this very fact caused her to feel guilty. In India, there would have been no question of his not moving in with her. Her father had never mentioned the possibility, and after her mother's death, it hadn't been feasible. Their old apartment was too small. But in Seattle, there were rooms to spare, rooms that stood empty and without purpose. Ruma feared that her father would become a responsibility, an added demand, continuously present in a way she was no longer used to. It would mean an end to the family she'd created on her own, herself, and Adam and Akash, and the second child that would come in January, conceived just before the move. She couldn't imagine tending to her father as her mother had, serving the meals her mother used to prepare. Still, not offering him a place in her home made her feel worse. It was a dilemma Adam didn't understand. Whenever she brought up the issue, he pointed out the obvious, that she already had a small child to care for, another on the way. He reminded her that her father was in good health for his age, content where he was. But he didn't object to the idea of her father living with them. His willingness was meant kindly.